Everybody, Justin Roy with J. Roy Associates, and we're here with another sit down. And as you can see, anybody who follows sports, I figure if two guys like this can sit down and have a conversation, I think a lot more of us can. So without further ado, this is Mr. Joe Preston. He's going to be putting his hat in the ring for the Johnston County School Board coming up in this year's election cycles. But before we get there, we're going to get to know Joe a little bit. So Joe, I know obviously you're from the great state of Ohio. If you want to tell us a little bit about life in Ohio and how you ended up in these parts.
Yeah, I was born and raised. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, at Riverside Hospital, and then we lived out in the country, middle of nowhere. And then, without going through my entire history of life, we decided 12 years ago, almost 12 years ago, 2010. We purchased a property in Johnston County and moved down here. My wife is half Spanish, and so she didn't like the cold weather up there, and there was an opportunity for us to come down, so we came down, and we've been here doing our thing for 11, 12 years, and obviously a lot of things have transpired during that time, but I figure we'll get to that at some point. But that's pretty much it, how we got down here.
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I'm sure being down here since 2010, you've seen a lot of changes in Johnston County.
Yes.
Over the last, not just the last 18 months, just the last 10 with the growth in general.
Yes.
So,
quickest growing county in the state.
Yes, I read that in the Triangle Business the other day. It's funny, I moved here in 2015, and my office was in Raleigh at the time, and they're like, you live all the way down in Clayton? It's like, dude, it's 22 minutes. It's not even that far. Now, all those people are like, hey, can you, show houses for me in Clayton? It's like, no, man, you come down here.
Right. You don't have, you've got plenty of opportunity right now.
Yeah, exactly. You have kids?
Yes, I have a beautiful daughter that's 12 years old, and I know that's such a cliche thing to say, a beautiful daughter. Everybody's going to say that about their own kid, but she's a lot like her mom, and she's strong. She's very smart, and I love her to death, and she's a big reason why I'm doing the things that I'm doing that we in no way, shape, or form 7-8 weeks ago thought we would be in the middle of.
So yeah, my daughter's 13, and of course, to me she's beautiful, but man, they're at that age where they got a mouth on them now. She was much better at...
That's a more honest representation.
And I have one of each. When my daughter was born, I was told by several family members who had both boys and girls as kids, like when they're little, the girls are great, the boys are not. But when they're 15, the girls are not, and the boys are great. Now my son's almost 10 and my daughter's almost 14, and I'm starting to see what they were talking about.
So you got one of each.
Yeah.
Yeah, so us just having one, it's really hard to gain that perspective.
Yeah.
Because it's just, we're just so focused on her, and I'm sure I had a great father. I mean, my dad was my absolute best friend, and unfortunately he passed away at a very young age. I was 17. And I mean, it affects me every day to this day, and I'm sure I'm probably harder on my daughter than I should be in some respects, because of I want to be such a good dad to her.
Yeah.
And she's the only one that we have, and like, man, I don't want to screw this up. But I know that it was a completely different generation. I'm 43. I grew up at a different time.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why I just told everybody that, but that's honest truth about her. She's an amazing kid.
Yeah, well, kids don't come with an instruction manual.
No.
And I always love the people who don't have kids who give parental advice. Or those are my favorite.
I know those people.
Yeah,
yes.
Or the people who have 2-year-olds and they want to tell me what my 14-year-old should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, well, when your 2-year-old has a mouth, and you let me know how that works out.
Right.
So yeah.
It doesn't.
I couldn't.
Well, and also, we're Midwestern guys.
Yeah.
I don't think they consider us Yankees down here. I've heard some say yes, but most have said Ohio is not Yankee. But
right. No, I've heard most say no.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of people, but it's like, we're not from New York.
But us trying to parent down here too is different. You know, I mean, because obviously if you got here in 2015, your kids were already
young. They were, yeah, my daughter was 7, my son was 3 when I moved here.
okay. So the 3-year-old's going to get a little bit more of the southern upbringing, but yeah, it's just that's different too.
Oh, they get it when we go back home or my family visits here. Definitely different.
It's completely
yeah,
different. And people don't understand it. And I can tell people don't blue in the face. It's just different here. But it is what it is.
So you moved to Johnston County 2010, start a family, wife. So obviously life is going good, and then March of 2020 happens.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, things kind of start to change. So, you know, we can, you know, I guess just take me through on all this. What were you guys in just your own personal lives? What was going through your minds or your heads? March, April, when all the stuff was starting to hit the fan, so to speak.
Well, I remember when they first did the mask mandates and certain stores were closed and the restaurants couldn't be open and gyms couldn't be open. And thankfully, some people stood up against that and secretly were still open. I remember going to Lowe's. I forget what it was for.
Yeah, the one in Smithfield.
Yes.
I don't know if I should say that, but yes. I went to the same one. We're probably getting the same story, but go ahead.
And it was like the outlet malls on Christmas Eve. I'd never seen so many people, and because I mean, my wife and I, we both have a pretty, I would say, hearty distrust for government, or at least to question it. You know, I mean, Thomas Jefferson said to question everything but with boldness, even the very existence of God. We question things. So we were like, you know what, maybe this is really bad. I mean, but when I went to Lowe's and I saw all of those people there, immediately I came home, I said, I think this is BS. I think that what they are doing is an over-exaggeration of what's actually happening. Because if it was that bad, Lowe's and Walmart and Target and all of these big box stores would not be allowed to be open. And when I say I think it's BS, I don't mean that there isn't something called COVID-19. I know people that are very sick. Typically they have other health issues. But to shut down an economy, I said this at the school board meeting, if anybody watched that. There's a little over 11 million people in North Carolina. And that day, September 14th, according to the CDC, there was 3,690 people in the hospital. That's 0.0003% of the population of the state. So to shut down the state and to try to give me some sort of emotional story about, well, I know, listen, it's terrible for those 3,690 people, I get it, but you can't just shut down everything else. People are losing their jobs. People don't know how, with kids not being able to go to school, quarantines. I'm getting way off track here. I'm just very passionate about that issue.
Sure.
But that's what happened back in March. I was at a different position at that time. I covered North and South Carolina for a national lender, and I wasn't allowed to travel. So I was basically working from home, but not being able to do what I really do. And then they were trying to mandate some things, so I decided to make it, another change where I was just working from home for another lender. My wife, at that time, was a teacher for Johnston County Public Schools, and she wore a mask during that time because, once again, we didn't really know what was going on.
Sure.
So my daughter continued to go to a Johnston County Public School last year. Because at that time it was 14 days to flatten the curve. We all know what happened. I mean, President Trump said by Easter we should have the country back open, and obviously none of that happened. And now things are a lot different. But I do want to make the point that last year we respected what they were trying to tell us was going on. And this year, 19, almost 20 months later, enough's enough.
We're still here.
In the same position.
Yeah, what got me is no, it got me. What changed mine when I was like, wow, this is going on. This is happening again. A sports reference is when they canceled the March Madness.
Oh, no kidding.
Well, I mean,
Well, and the ACC tournament, which is down here, is almost as big as March Madness.
yeah, I'm cruising down the road and they're like, breaking news. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's when I was like, man, something's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this: have you, during this whole time, have you personally known anybody who's had it?
Yeah, a lot of people did. But what does that mean?
Just that they were tested positive for COVID-19.
No.
Yeah.
I've known people that have believed that they've had it, but tested negative. I had one person upset that she didn't test positive
Okay.
because she swears that she has it. And then she said there was some report from the Harvard Journal that said if you have type O blood,
I saw that. Yeah.
if you have type O blood, you probably have it, but there's a lot of false negatives.
Yeah, I have type O blood, and that's what somebody told me that.
But the point is, when you get to that point where you're upset that you don't have a disease that is supposedly the deadliest virus that's ever hit, I don't know what to say to you.
Well, my question was going to be, if you know how many people have it, you know the number, you know who they are. Of those folks, I'm going to assume that the majority of them are still with us, if not all.
100%.
Right. So we start moving through this. Again, I didn't follow it as closely because I got burnt out on the COVID thing fairly quickly. It was just everybody, every news,
It's very easy to do.
I'm going to say by June or July of 2020, I was spaced out about it. So a lot of what I'm going to say might be hearsay, but I probably paid more attention the last 60 days than I did the previous 18 months, other than the very first month. But we started to ease back, right? So we went through this thing, we started to ease back, and you started to see stores opening, you started seeing people being able to go back into restaurants. I can't remember the exact time periods, but you slowly but surely, but most of the people, as you've already said, that were shut down were little mom and pop. It wasn't the big boys. It was the people who need the customers. And then it seemed like we were all, kind of getting back to, life as before. And then, I don't know, 2 months ago, last month, 3 months, then we started to see where it started to flip and we're kind of going back in the other direction.
Right.
And I know what it hit for you personally is what you're going to sit here and talk about is why you're running for the school board is the school systems. And my children don't go to school, they are homeschooled, so we're going to rely on a lot of you on what you want to talk about. But again, I just see what I read on the news and hear from some of my neighbors is masks, no masks, half at home, half not at home, or trying to. I did help. One of my clients was a school teacher, and she was doing everything from her dining room table, and she had like 40 faces looking at her on her thing.
Yes.
So if we want to just kind of start there, because I think this is where your passion probably lies the most, is what's been going on in the schools the last 18 months, and how has it affected, just everything in general, and not just from the kids, but I know the parents are just as affected. And again, my kids don't go to school, so I'm not going to speak like I'm going through this, but I went to public school, and the older you get, you have friends, and you do stuff and activities and football games, and look, it's just part of growing up. So I don't know what you want to start with as far as the school goes.
I would say the first thing is two things to start off with. Everything that I'm talking about or going to say has nothing to do with anything negative against any teachers or administration locally. I believe in my heart of hearts that most in the education community want the absolute best for children. Now, I think some of them believe on a completely different set of moral values and things like that than I do. But I believe in their mind they believe what's best for the children. So we were on vacation back in late July, and
2020 or 2021?
2021.
Okay.
Sorry. And my wife got a text saying that the school board had voted on the mask issue. So that's the second thing. The mask issue, we're always reported as anti-mask. And we are 100% not anti-mask. We are pro-liberty
Pro-choice.
and pro-choice. If you want to wear a mask, that's fine. If you want to get a vaccine, that's fine. If you want to get an implant on the back of your neck,
Yeah.
that's
A
fine.
tattoo on your face.
Just don't make me. I mean, I've been on record many times talking about the Constitution protecting our personal property and what's more personal than your own person. Like, you can't do that to us. So those are the main two things. But we're on vacation. She gets a text that the Board of Education voted on the mask mandate, and they 4-3. Thank God they're not good, because I knew that my wife wasn't going to wear a mask.
And your wife is?
My,
The teacher.
my wife is the teacher
Yeah.
that everybody has heard about. So, I'm excited. We finish out our vacation. We get home a couple weeks later. We're getting ready. I was putting on these tennis shoes actually, and we were gonna go take a walk out in the neighborhood. And she looks at me. She goes, "Crap." I go, "What?" She goes, "I just got a text. They flipped the vote." I'm like, what are you talking about? And she told me, and I said, "Okay, great, wonderful," because immediately I know that she's not going to wear a face covering. So we reached out to multiple people about how to handle this. She actually went to her school for the first day of training, or not training, they have like the work days for the first week. And they didn't know how to deal with it. Made her sit in her room. Most of the people have heard this story probably, but made her sit in her room for 3 hours by herself. And it was just, to me, what was so upsetting was, how can you have a policy in place, a decision in place, but not have a policy on how to handle it? In other words, when she walks into her school and that principal doesn't know how to handle it, that means they hadn't had a phone call, they hadn't had a meeting, there was no email sent out. They went into this completely blind. And something that important, I don't know how you can do. So that was issue number one with me for the schools. I haven't been following this stuff. I don't want to be involved in any of this. I'm just a guy trying to provide for his family.
Yeah.
Right? But obviously when this happened, because we're talking about extra income, health insurance that she was providing for our family. My daughter, what are we going to do with her schooling? And I'm sure I'm speaking the same things that many people that are watching this are thinking. Like, I've had to stay home. I lost a job. I've got a niece. I know there's a lot of people in the medical industry. I've got a niece that's a nurse that is no longer employed because of the vaccine mandates they're making them do. So, I mean, and that's the thing. It's just going to continue on and on and on and on. They're not going to stop. This is not about masks. This is about government control versus individual liberty.
It's about choice. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And that's, I mean, listen, here's both sides of the coin. You get the people who are like, you're spreading it, people are dying. Look, and there's a lot of people out there, and listen, if people are genuinely scared, listen, I get it. I mean, you'll never see me bungee jump because I'm too scared to. So I just ain't gonna do it.
I'm exactly with you on that.
Yeah. So,
yes.
but look, I mean, listen, I'm sure we both know, we hear it. We get, to the people who say, yeah, but it's going to spread it and carry and go to the next person. I mean, how do we, or what's the solution to make those folks who believe in that feel comfortable?
I think comfortable is a better word. I thought you were going to say to change their minds, because I don't think that that's going to happen.
No, not at all. Just like the pro-choice, because mask people, I don't think you're going to change their mind either. It's like, I personally have never heard somebody, this is just me, and maybe it's just my people who I hang around. I've never had someone say, why does that person have a mask on? They should take it off.
Right.
It never comes, I mean, it's just like whatever.
We don't care.
Even before COVID, when I would fly, there would always be 2 or 3 people on the plane with a mask. Like, it never didn't do, I mean, you just went about your business.
Right.
So anyway, so yeah, comfortable. I like that word too. So to the folks who are on the other side, if you don't get a vaccine, you're spreading it, you're selfish, you're not looking out for your fellow man. What is the response?
The response is, At what point would you be okay with us taking the mask off? At what point would you be okay with us not getting vaccine? Do we have to have 0 cases of it? I mean, 0? It reminds me of some people on the left will always say, you know, we've got to tax the rich. And I've asked many of them, people in my own family, well, how much should we tax them? And there's never an answer. It's never enough. So to those out there, I'd really like to know. I gave you a stat earlier: 11 million people, 3,690 in the hospital. That's a very tiny percentage. God bless those people, and I hope they get well. But does the rest of the country need to be, or the rest of the state need to be punished on that? And wearing a mask, specifically the masks that we're putting on kids, cloth masks, the ones that are provided in the schools, I mean, unless it's the KN95 or whatever, I mean, there's 0 evidence that it actually is going to stop anything. I mean, I've done it myself where I should have brought it in, and I might grab it before we're done. I wear glasses if I don't have my contacts in. I mean, if you put a mask on and I'm breathing, my glasses fog up. Yeah. Which means the stuff's still coming out if I have it. Now, I know people will say, well, what about the particulates from when you're speaking? You might spit on somebody or something like that. Yeah, oh, okay, but once again, what does it even mean to have COVID? I mean, I think I've probably had it at some point, and I felt like I had a cold for a couple days. I know it's much worse for other people, but what does it mean to have COVID, and why are we so scared of it? I look at COVID from how the media is portraying it and how unfortunately people are following it, that it has become a religion. And it's disappointing, to say the least. But I mean, like I said, I don't know if we can make people feel comfortable. I feel like if they're on that side, they're on that side, and I just hope there's more of us than them at the end of the day. Because once again, one last thing, I know you're going to say something. I am not trying to take your right away, but you are trying to take my right away. And I think people really need to understand that. That's what I'm doing this work for, this exhausting work.
Yeah, it is exhausting, mentally exhausting, no doubt about it. So we can even, again, this is me coming from some other podcasts I listen to the news, so you just take it with a grain of salt. But, when I stop and think about it, I guess, it kind of it could make sense is, we're seeing, I know some people don't like this term, but the trickle down effect is vaccines are being mandated or
they are in some areas.
Required, yeah. So you got people who are now unemployed, which then we're seeing shortages, not just in hospitals, work-wise, everywhere. I mean, come on. I mean, just drive around. I don't care where you live. I can just speak mostly of Michigan and here, but
well, right now in Johnston County Public Schools, there's over 400 open positions.
Right, and that's just there. The McDonald's that they just built up the road here just changed their hours. Now they're not open until 7 a.m. and they're closing at 8 o'clock at night. McDonald's.
And they're offering a $600 signing bonus or something like that, probably. The ones in Smithfield are.
And $13.50 an hour. McDonald's. And they can't. I mean, I've got to know that the kid who works the drive-thru, I get my coffee there, 3 or 4, he's like, yeah, we got a couple, applications trickling, but not, what used to be, again, a year ago or whatever before. So, so you're seeing the trickle down that, and then you're seeing the influx in people filing for benefits because, they don't have income coming in. And so it's just a whole, you're seeing the whole result of the economics. And then listen, you'll have the other side, just to play devil's advocate, as people say, oh, well, don't you care more about safety than money? And that's kind of, that's the rub, religion is not a bad term to use it, but I think people are, I think we get so fixated, and it's just not one side or the other in this subject. People get so fixated on what they believe and what they think is right that the conversation, just having an open, civil conversation, even if you disagree, is just lacking. And I think it started not just with COVID. I think we've been slowly seeing that through over the last decade or so. I mean,
I'm not going to get into my belief system on that as well, but yes, you're right.
So, and listen, it's we're both, citizens of the same county. We both pay taxes, you have people like, well, wait a minute, part of my tax dollars goes to the public school system, which in turn is supposed to educate my children, and now I'm being told that they can't go. So that, again, these are all arguments, and yeah, the emotions, human emotion is a strong feeling.
That's why I try to not, you won't hear me talk a lot of statistics. The only one I gave is the 11 million people, because I just think, to me, that's like the most simple one to understand.
I agree.
I talk mostly about concepts behind why we're doing that. That's what I'm talking about, personal property, what's more personal than your own person. Because I don't think, because if I got into a conversation with somebody on the other side, typically they're gonna go emotional almost immediately and give me all these scientific, well, this doctor said this, and here's this statistic and whatever. And you're never gonna win that argument. You gotta stick to facts, basic facts, easily understandable facts. And that's always been my message. I always say we're doing hard work. The people that are in groups that I'm in and stuff, like, I never say fight, because being on the side that I'm on, the media will not present that in a favorable manner. So it's always work, it's hard work, and it's difficult to continue to have these conversations every day. But I'm hoping when people get to know me more, they'll understand that, what, this guy, he seems like a regular guy. My name is Joe. He looks like an average Joe, that type of thing. Because I think we need, and it doesn't have to be me. I just hope we have more people like me that are just regular guys that aren't looking for anything out of this.
Yeah.
I heard we get paid some money for the school board to be on it. And I was like,
but
we get paid? What? Why would I want that? I didn't even know about that.
By the time you get done, it's 6 cents an hour.
Right. No. I've heard that too, but it's like, to me, I just, I think about, you talked about freedom for safety. I'm big on our founding fathers. So, Benjamin Franklin has a famous quote, and I'm paraphrasing, but anybody that wants to give up their freedom for a little bit of safety deserves neither. And that's exactly how I feel. Once again, 11 million people, less than 4,000 in the hospital. Come on, what are we doing? Yeah. And how many kids are we hurting right now?
Well, I don't know the statistic, but it's far less.
No, I'm talking about developmentally.
Oh,
so
sure.
We went from 14 days to flatten the curve to 19 months of developmental disabilities. Yeah. That's where we're at.
Went quick. So let's get into the school board. So all this is going on with your wife. You're seeing it. Obviously, you have a daughter. So you're putting your name in the hat of when you're allowed to officially. So what are going to be what are you going to be running on, I guess, for the school board? What are going to be some of your objectives or some of the things you're going to be discussing over the next 12 months or so?
Well, there's a lot. Obviously the freedom of choice to wear a face covering or not. I don't know if you know this too, by the way. My wife wanted to look into virtual school and be a teacher. For her to do that, she had to go to a school building and put a mask on. We were going to put my daughter in virtual school. They were full. I don't understand how virtual school can be full, but it was. But anyways, we've got over 400 openings, as I said before, right? Everybody knows that there's, you can't, and it's not just teachers, it's substitutes as well. It's school bus drivers. And you're hearing about school bus drivers all over the place leaving. I've been to 22 schools now, either in the morning for drop off or in the afternoon for pickup lines. I've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 weeks. I don't think I've talked about that at all yet, but with other parents, there's been a core group that typically can come, but then we have others. And we're holding up signs that say, we love teachers, we support choice. Every single school bus that drives by waves at us. If they could honk their horn, they would honk their horn. They're putting their thumbs up, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got big support from that. CRT is a huge issue. I think the biggest thing that I'd be running on is this social re-engineering that they are trying to do in our schools.
What's CRT?
Critical race theory. And in my opinion, critical race theory could be defined as, if you are a white person, you are inherently racist. Now, people on the other side will not say that. Of course they won't. But that is exactly what critical race theory is when it is being implemented in schools. People are saying that critical race theory isn't happening in Johnston County schools. On paper, no, it's not. But there are elements of it in terms of the training that these teachers are getting. You can go to multiple websites and pull up proof of the training that they're getting that is specifically teaching them critical race theory. Obviously, most educational professionals, just in terms of where the teachers' unions dollars go, and how most teachers and educators vote, it typically leans to the left. So it is getting to our kids. And I call it social re-engineering because wearing a mask, not being able to see other people's faces, the expressions, making them feel like less of a person because they don't have an identity. That's social re-engineering. If you're a white kid and you're being told that you are inherently racist, if you're a non-white kid, what are they being taught? Is there a superiority complex? I don't know any of these things. I'm just saying, I know it's wrong. So I'm running on not the social re-engineering of our children. I'm not just talking about masks. It has everything else that's going into it.
Wow, so you're going deep.
Well, I mean,
No, it's
my kid's in there.
Yeah,
Well, she's not now. We pulled
Okay.
my kid out too, and I've heard some people saying that. Well, I mean, how can this person run if he doesn't have a child? I did have a child in the school, until this,
Well, you also pay taxes.
and I have it right, and I had a wife in the school system until this.
Who was a
I'm sorry. Do I need to be in the school system?
Yeah.
Do I need to go back down here?
Yeah, I've had actually. It's funny. Again, me selling houses, I've had a few people say, "Well, we don't have any kids, or our kids are grown, so I don't care about the school systems." I'm like, "Well, you should." Well, why? Well, because your taxes where you live are going to go towards the schools, which inherently affect your home value. So you should care about the schools, whether your kids are there or not. But that's just my advice. Yeah, you guys choose where you want to live.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always was caught off guard by that.
Well, and everybody knows there's a reason that certain areas of the county aren't growing as well.
Yeah.
And that's because people look at the school systems. And there's some really bad school systems.
That's all over the country.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm only in one county out of
Yeah.
100 in North Carolina,
Sure.
so that's all I can try to affect.
Absolutely.
By the way, this is sponsored by LaCroix.
Yeah. I wish it was.
Right, yeah, exactly.
All right, so it's just not the mask. It's about freedom. It's about the education that's going into it. So, I don't know much. I actually did watch the last school board meeting, the only one that I've ever watched, and I remember the one.
Boring as heck, aren't they?
I remember but you talked about the job openings. I remember the one lady
Yeah.
was recognizing, I believe, the custodial crew, and at the very end she goes, and hey, we need people. I know you have a shout. So, when you said they have 400 openings, I didn't realize there was that much, but I remember her saying that.
Yeah, there's roughly 37,000 kids and over 400 openings. And I don't remember the exact number. I didn't know this until, once again, just got into this 7-8 weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
There are 46 or 47 schools in the county. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I've been to 22 and I'm not even halfway there yet. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and they're building a new one out here off 42.
Well,
Yeah.
and they need to, because all of that's another big issue is we honestly, we're kind of out kicking our coverage in terms of all of the developments and people we're bringing in.
Sure.
And the school facilities that we have and updating school facilities. I just saw a report the other day. I mean, they're spending almost $1 million to fix bleachers at a couple schools. And you just wonder, I'm not saying it doesn't need done, but is that where we need that money to go right now? I don't know.
A few years ago, I went to legislative meetings in Raleigh, and a gentleman there, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a Johnston County resident, and he's, in certain industries, got a pretty big name around here. But they were talking about how they don't have any money, and he was like, well, specifically Johnston County. So he's like, we got all these people moving here. Like, what do you mean? He's like, if there was ever a time that we had money, it'd be now. So I thought he had a decent idea. So they started talking about the expenses to upkeep some of these things, but all the things they were listing had nothing to do with the school buildings or the education. It was like football fields and swimming pools. So he goes, well, I have a great idea. He goes, how about instead of every school having I don't forget the number, but they're putting all the sod or fake, you know. He goes, instead of doing that, why don't we just take like 2 or 3 fields in the whole county and just make those like
the nicest.
Yeah. And those are where the kids play football instead of all the schools. And then he gave a couple more examples. And then, you know, the guy goes, well, you know, we got a quote to repave a parking lot. It was like 130 grand. The guy's like, give me till tomorrow. I'll get something to do for 80 grand. Yeah. You know, it's like, and I know, again, you know, we're kind of going down, it's a rabbit hole here, but I do think, you know, and I don't care where you are on one side. I always look at it, if you're a family person, you run a business. Your business is your household. Garbage in, garbage out. And I had someone use this example for me. It's like, Joe, if I gave you $100, you could, you know, piss it away in 20 minutes and not think anything about it because you didn't earn it. It was given to you. But when you earn $100, you're like, so, and I kind of feel sometimes with, and I'm just not picking on Johnston County, I was just there, but in a lot of the
government in general,
it's like,
you
know, and that's what, you know, that's personally what frustrates me, just not with schools, but with mostly everything in general. So we're talking about pro-choice on the mask, we're talking about the education part of it, and the CRT, I've never heard that term before, CRT. Anything else that is going to be a big
Wait a minute, you haven't heard of critical race theory?
Yes, but I've never.
Oh, you just not as the CRT.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Not the acronym.
Okay, yeah, I mean, because that's the benefit of your kids being in
Right, I was just
homeschool.
going to say, but you got, like I said, man, you got to remember, I'm kind of out of tune with the school. My daughter goes to, you know,
Well, I was you.
Yeah, she's in gymnastics. And, you know, she comes home and tells me some of the kids, you know, she's, you know, for being homeschooled, my kids are a little sheltered, I'm not going to lie. So she says some of the things the other kids, I'm like, I got to Google it because I don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's what they're talking about these days. Okay.
Well, I was out of it, you know, a couple months ago because, like I said, I was just being a man.
Yeah.
Trying to take care of his family. And I know that that's even frowned upon now to say something like that. Well, yes, my wife can take care of herself. But I mean, as a man growing up when I grew up, you know, I feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's all I've been focused on. And, you know, trying to live a good life, have a good quality life.
Yeah, the only time my parents went to school was when I got in trouble.
100%. So, I mean, or if, you know, I don't think they call it this down here, but up there it was always like, you gotta pass the levy, you gotta pass the levy. I mean, schools have been asking for money, just like any government institution's been asking for money, ever since my ears started working. I mean, and I'm not saying that they don't need to do that, but like, yeah, somebody's gotta be watching where the stuff's going. And, you know, I put out a video the other day. The biggest surprise out of all of this has been, I'm talking about only being involved in this for just a few weeks. The attacks that I've received, the attacks that my wife received at first as being the teacher.
I couldn't imagine. I remember seeing her, obviously before I knew that was your wife, I remember seeing the story for the first time. I was like, sitting on my couch like, oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, but she's so strong. Like she doesn't need me to be her protector, but I know she appreciates it. But she's such a strong person. But you know, seeing that, what I have been really surprised about, and this is what I was talking about in my video the other day, was the infighting within our own group of people supposedly that are supposedly supposed to have the same views. And I'm not going to get into more. If people want to look at that, they can watch that video. But that has been the biggest shock of all of this, is getting attacked from what you thought were people that were on your side. And, you know, there's 3 seats available.
Yeah.
There's 3 seats that are up in November. And by the way, it's October 1st of 2020. So we are roughly 13 months away from the actual election.
2021.
Or 2021, yeah. And we've got March of 2022 is when the primaries are. So this is why people don't want to run for any type of office. I mean, a congressman, as soon as they get elected, all they're doing is campaigning.
Right. They want to get reelected.
A senator has a little bit of chance because they're a 6-year term, right? But I mean, you see how early presidential election campaigning is going to start. Nothing gets done. The whole point is these people get elected just to get elected. They're not there to do anything. And I'm trying to let people know that if somebody like me can run for something like this, then you can too. Come out, the more the merrier. We need regular people that actually care about this stuff, that aren't looking for some incredible, crazy political career.
Sure.
They're just stepping in because they believe that they're doing something that is in their heart and is right.
No doubt about it. So it's safe to say that you had no political aspirations before all this.
Well, if you ask people from Ohio, they would say differently. I said when I was a kid, I was going to be president of the United States. I used to wear an American flag tie to school Sundays. I was really cool, and the ladies loved me, obviously, because of all of that geekdom. But no, I mean, in the past, I volunteered to be on a city council or a Parks and Recs committee for a city council. I've talked about doing things in the past, but I mean, as life went on, it became less and less important to me because my family became more and more important to me. But no, leading up to, I just want to be completely honest, as always, leading up to this, I had zero political aspirations.
Yeah, and hey, that's what they say, you never say never, because something like this happens, and yeah, I'm sure you probably will agree. I never in a million years would have thought. You would have asked me 24 months ago. I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure most people feel that way. And I don't care if you're, think everybody should be vaccinated. Hey, I respect your opinion, and that's fine. But I still don't think anybody thought it would be to this level.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that. And I think you meant it differently. If somebody told me that they thought everybody needs to be vaccinated, I will disagree with them. I think what you probably meant to say was if they wanted to be vaccinated.
Well, I meant to, and again, I think that's one of the benefits about, I think, living in the U.S., I think the U.S. gets put in a poor light sometimes, and people beat us up, and we're not perfect, but listen, I've only lived in this country. I visited other countries, not a lot, but I have been to a few, not a few other, just one other. But listen, that's the best thing about it is we should have our freedoms, and that's what it comes down. And I think open discussions like this amongst, each other, and, we're always not going to agree, but, my grandfather told me, the conversation that you're avoiding is the one that you need to have. That was one of his good pieces of advice. But again, I think back then before the phones and we didn't have any keyboard gangsters, 95% of the people did talk face to face, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Hell, I guarantee you, I didn't have a cell phone in high school. I'm assuming you didn't either. But, now it's, block.
I was 22, just out of college when I got my first cell phone.
Yeah.
No, and I mean, that's something we could talk for an hour about. I think, and if you go back to from my very beginning of being on Facebook, I'm not on anything else. I probably should be, but, and I've left Facebook and came back and, but the message has always been clear. I've been saying for 20 years that social media is going to destroy us. And the keyboard warrior thing, it's so easy to do whatever you say, whatever you want to say, and put people down. The hate, honestly, there's so much evil. I believe in good and evil. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I believe in Satan. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Savior. There is evil on Facebook and all of the other social media. And people aren't wise to it for whatever reason, and I hope that changes quickly.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how it was, if you heard stories with your daughter being in school, but when we were in school, I hate bullies. I still hate bullies to this day, and there's bullies on both sides. But when we were kids, what did you do to the bully? You stood up to him or her.
Mhm.
But now the bully has access to go on the internet,
Mhm.
and it's one thing I try to stress to my daughter so much is these pictures never go away.
Especially girls.
Oh, yeah.
It's, yeah.
I mean, the dumb stuff you and I did in 1994, you know, we didn't have to worry about it being caught on, you know,
Right.
on the real world, real life TV,
Right.
and broadcasted. And, you know, that's like you said, the generational thing, that's a whole different thing.
Well, I've met a lot of law enforcement, school resource officers in all these schools I've been visiting, and the stories that they tell me of what's going on in middle schools, things that are happening in the bathrooms, because of what these kids are exposed to. There's another thing that I'm running. I mean, it's amazing what they're telling me is going on, because I'm thinking, of course, of my daughter and her
Absolutely.
age, and what is she seeing that I don't know about? And I know we can't control everything, and I know that my parents wanted to do the same thing for me, and I still got away with stuff, right? But it's different. I mean, and I hate to say it because what they said back then, but it is different now. It is completely different now.
Oh yeah, I mean the things we're saying now is what my parents. I mean, my parents would tell me they were allowed in the 70s. You know, they could smoke cigarettes at school if you were
Mhm.
a legal age. You know, you didn't have to hide it. You know, you couldn't smoke in the building, but you step outside, you had to smoke. You
Mhm.
know, now they treat cigarette smokers like they're felons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my kids have it in their mind if they see a person smoking a cigarette, they think they're automatically a bad person. I'm like, no, they're not bad. They just have a bad habit.
And we're in Johnston County, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, tobacco
Yeah.
central.
Yeah, it's like it's okay. They smoke. Yes, we don't smoke, but it doesn't mean they're not
Mhm.
good folks.
Right.
So yes, and the irony, I didn't even think of that. We're in Tobacco Road.
I mean, literally.
So, well, all right, Joe. Listen, I'm going to wrap up here. Anything else you want to kind of say before we wrap things up here?
Yeah, I guess the last thing I would want to say is just to people that are watching and wondering what I'm about and the movement is about, is the biggest thing is we're peaceful. We try to do things the right way as much as we possibly can. Like if I'm going out to a school, I always call the law enforcement first, and I call the school first, let them know we're going to be there. We're doing hard work. Teddy Roosevelt, I use this quote all the time. He said the greatest honor in life is to have the opportunity to do hard work at work we're doing. And we believe this is work we're doing, and we're up for the hard work, as exhausting as it is. But I can't stress enough in this time of uncivility, we are a peaceful group, and we're not trying to push anything on these people. We just want our own freedoms. We just want our own voices to be heard, and doing it in a lawful and rightful manner. So, like you with the Michigan jersey and me with the Ohio State jersey, it's good to have these kinds of conversations. Obviously, this is just a metaphor, but I mean,
Absolutely.
these are the things that we need to continue to do and continue to do it the right way.
No doubt about it. And listen, have a conversation, respect someone's other opinion, and just have a civil conversation. Even if you don't agree, it's okay. You don't have to agree.
Yeah.
But yes, the you're a killer, and so all that stuff. Just again, that's probably why I checked out so early, because
It's hard to deal with.
yeah, having a conversation. Well, look, Joe Preston, Johnston County Board. I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot of him over the next 12 or 13 months.
Yeah.
Right.
Hopefully. I got to get through the primary.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
So,
okay, get through the.
You're definitely going to see me over the next 6 months.
Yes, March is the primary.
March, yeah.
Okay, get through the primaries, and I'm going to link Joe to this video, so I'll link to his Facebook. Do you have a website?
I've got a Facebook, I got a page.
Okay, so I'll get that from Joe. We'll
Yeah.
link that here so you can go check more of them out, reach out to him directly, questions, concerns. I appreciate you guys watching. Joe, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.